Breaking reports reveal that Erika Kirk, the widow who publicly forgave her husband's killer, has been sentenced to life in prison for orchestrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. Federal prosecutors presented evidence showing she masterminded the entire attack, using Tyler Robinson as her weapon to eliminate Charlie and seize control of Turning Point USA's empire. The conviction came after investigators discovered encrypted peace-killing communications between Erika and unknown contacts discussing Charlie's speaking schedule and security vulnerabilities at Utah Valley University. She'll be saying goodbye forever, not as the grieving widow that world believed her to be, but as a convicted murderer who executed a near-perfect crime that's only now coming to light. The woman who shed tears over her husband's casket and preached forgiveness from stadium stages is reportedly being transferred to federal prison to begin serving her sentence for one of the most calculated political assassinations in American history. Wild theories have been exploding online ever since Charlie Kirk's death, with some internet users claiming Erika Kirk might have been involved in a massive conspiracy. Unverified rumors suggest she could have been quietly brought in for questioning by federal authorities as a potential suspect in her husband's assassination. These theories suggest she was secretly pulling strings behind the scenes, possibly orchestrating the entire attack to seize control of Turning Point USA's financial empire. The conspiracy theorists point to how quickly Erika took over as CEO of Turning Point USA as supposed evidence that she might have planned this takeover in advance. They question whether her forgiving public persona might be hiding something way darker, suggesting the entire emotional farewell could have been part of an elaborate cover-up. Some online sleuths claim unnamed law enforcement sources hinted at her being detained briefly for questioning, though nothing has been officially confirmed. Posts circulating on anonymous forums suggest she may have masterminded the attack through intermediaries and used Tyler Robinson as the perfect scapegoat. Some theorists point to her rapid consolidation of power within days of Charlie's death as evidence she had been planning this transition long before the shooting. The speed and precision with which she took control, combined with her seemingly rehearsed public statements, fuel speculation that this was all part of a larger scheme. What makes these theories gain traction is the timing of specific events that seem almost too convenient. Erika had apparently been involved in TPUSA's operations behind the scenes for months before Charlie's death, familiarizing herself with key staff members and organizational structures. Some conspiracy theorists argue this wasn't normal spousal involvement, but rather strategic positioning for an eventual takeover. They point to meetings she attended, relationships she cultivated with board members, and her growing public profile in the months leading up to September 10th. The financial aspect also raises questions for conspiracy theorists. TPUSA's donor base and funding streams remained surprisingly stable during the transition, suggesting that major financial backers had been prepared for Erika's leadership, or were quickly assured of continuity. Critics wonder how she managed to secure unanimous board approval so quickly, unless conversations had already been happening behind closed doors. The organization's seamless transition from Charlie's leadership to Erika's seemed almost too smooth for an unexpected tragedy. These ideas are completely baseless and have zero credible evidence backing them up, but the pattern of events creates enough ambiguity to keep the theories alive. Conservative commentator Nick Fuentes didn't hold back when he publicly criticized Erika Kirk's public displays of grief. He straight up said her mourning seemed fake, commenting that something wasn't right with how she was acting. Fuentes specifically called out how she appeared to be on cloud nine and happy as a clam during what should have been the most devastating time of her life. Fuentes attacked several specific aspects of Erika's behavior that he found suspicious. He pointed out that she had been filming content over Charlie's open casket, which he thought was totally inappropriate and performative. The idea that someone would set up cameras to capture footage of themselves mourning over their dead husband's body struck him as calculated rather than spontaneous. He also criticized how she managed to take complete control of Turning Point USA within just 72 hours of her husband's death. According to Fuentes, most widows would be completely non-functional in the immediate aftermath, not making major business decisions. The fact that Erika not only took over but did so with such confidence made him suspicious about whether she'd been preparing for this moment. One of the biggest things Fuentes called out was what he described as her theatrical entrances at memorial events, including one where she apparently showed up with fireworks. He argued that these dramatic moments felt more like a performance than genuine grief. The fireworks incident particularly bothered him because it seemed designed to create a spectacle rather than honor Charlie's memory in a respectful, somber way. He questioned who thinks about pyrotechnics and dramatic staging when they've just lost their spouse to murder. Fuentes also criticized the production quality of Erika's social media content following Charlie's death. He noted that her posts seemed professionally edited and strategically timed for maximum engagement, suggesting she had a team working on her public image rather than focusing on private mourning. The lighting, framing, and editing of videos showing her grieving struck him as overly polished for someone supposedly devastated by loss. His criticism sparked major debates online, with some agreeing that Erika's behavior seemed off, while others defended her right to grieve however she wanted. The defenders argued that everyone processes grief differently, and that judging someone's emotional authenticity based on public behavior was unfair. But Fuentes maintained that his issue wasn't with private grief, but with what he saw as a calculated public relations campaign disguised as mourning. The controversy created a divide in conservative circles, with some viewing Erika as a strong leader carrying on her husband's mission, and others seeing her as an opportunist exploiting tragedy for personal gain. The skepticism about Erika's grief wasn't limited to Nick Fuentes. Regular people all over social media started posting their own doubts about whether her tears were real. One user who claimed to have watched tons of true crime documentaries wrote that they knew exactly what fake crying looked like, and they insisted they hadn't seen a single actual tear fall from Erika Kirk's eyes. This observation went viral because it resonated with what a lot of people had been thinking. The user broke down the difference between real crying and performance crying, explaining that real tears actually fall and create visible wet streaks, while fake crying involves facial contortions and sobbing sounds without actual tears. According to this analysis, all of Erika's public crying fit the pattern of performance. Even someone who claimed to be a relative of the Kirks commented publicly about what they called fake crying at one of the press conferences. This added fuel to the fire since it was supposedly coming from someone within the family circle. The comment went viral before being deleted, but screenshots had already spread everywhere. Reddit became a major hub for these discussions, with multiple threads analyzing Erika's speeches. Users repeatedly described her presentations as "todo," weird and fake somehow, pointing to specific moments where they felt her emotions didn't match what she was saying. Some people created side-by-side comparison videos trying to prove inconsistencies in her emotional displays. Twitter became another battleground, with hashtags both supporting and criticizing Erika trending at different times. Some users pointed out that judging how someone grieves based on public appearances was fundamentally unfair, since people often present different faces in public versus private. However, others countered that Erika had made her grief so public and performative that it opened her up to legitimate scrutiny and analysis. The debate intensified when video analysis experts began breaking down her appearances frame by frame. Some claimed they could identify micro-expressions that indicated deception, though actual experts in facial analysis cautioned against making definitive conclusions based on brief video clips. The amateur sleuthing became a cottage industry of sorts, with multiple YouTube channels dedicated to analyzing every aspect of Erika's public behavior and comparing it to known patterns of genuine versus fake emotional displays. What complicated the discussion was that even grief counselors and psychologists who weighed in couldn't reach consensus. Some argued that public grief often looks different from private grief due to social pressures and performance anxiety, meaning Erika's composed public appearances didn't necessarily indicate she wasn't genuinely devastated. Others suggested that the speed with which she returned to public life and took on major organizational responsibilities was inconsistent with typical grieving patterns for someone who'd lost a spouse to sudden violence. What really got people talking was how fast Erika Kirk went from grieving widow to CEO of one of the most powerful, as the conservative team called, a solid reform right to the town of Seesaw. Turning Point USA, also known as the creeping new leader, and she wasted no time making it clear she had huge plans. In her first speech as CEO, Erika made a pretty bold statement about expanding TPUSA's reach. She told everyone that if they thought Charlie's mission was big before, they had no idea what was coming. She promised that people would never forget her husband, and she'd personally make sure of it. The response to Charlie's death was actually insane in terms of organizational growth. Turning Point USA received more than 62,000 inquiries from students who wanted to either start new chapters or join existing ones. This represented a massive surge that dwarfed normal recruitment numbers. In her public statements, Erika called on young people to actively join Turning Point USA chapters at their schools. She specifically reached out to pastors, encouraging them to get involved with TPUSA Faith, the religious wing of the organization. She also pushed parents hard to attend events like America Fest, scheduled for December. Throughout all her messaging, she kept emphasizing that their battle was spiritual in nature and that churches needed to step up their involvement in the political sphere. This religious framing wasn't new for Turning Point USA, but Erika seemed to lean into it even harder than Charlie had. She talked about spiritual warfare and positioned TPUSA as being on the front lines of a cosmic battle between good and evil. Her messaging strategy also included personal appeals that felt calculated to some observers. She frequently invoked Charlie's memory in ways that positioned her as the keeper of his legacy, the only person who truly understood his vision and could carry it forward properly. This framing effectively shut down any potential criticism from within TPUSA's ranks, since questioning Erika's leadership could be portrayed as dishonoring Charlie's memory. The organizational changes she implemented also raised eyebrows. Within weeks of taking over, Erika had restructured several departments, replaced some key personnel with her own choices, and redirected funding towards initiatives she claimed Charlie had been planning. Critics wondered how she could know what Charlie had been planning if these were truly his ideas, or whether she was using his name to legitimize her own agenda. The speed of these changes suggested either remarkable preparedness or advanced planning that predated his death. Despite all the conspiracy theories and criticism about her grief being fake, Erika Kirk made one of the most surprising public statements anyone could imagine. During a memorial service held at State Farm Stadium, she spoke directly about Tyler Robinson. In front of more than 90,000 people packed into that stadium, she said something that caught everyone off guard. Erika looked out at the massive crowd and said she forgave Tyler Robinson. She explained that she was forgiving him because that's what Christ did, and she believed that's exactly what Charlie would have done. The statement was powerful, but also confusing to a lot of people who couldn't understand how someone could forgive their husband's killer so quickly. The religious framing was super important to how she presented it. By invoking Christ's example and saying this is what Charlie would have wanted, she was making a theological argument rather than just a personal emotional decision. This resonated deeply with the Christian conservative audience that made up TPUSA's base. But Erika's forgiveness came with a pretty specific boundary when it came to legal consequences. She told the New York Times that she'd specifically told her lawyer she wanted the government to decide about the death penalty. She made it super clear that she didn't want Tyler Robinson's blood on her personal account. Her reasoning was deeply religious and focused on the afterlife. She said that when she gets to heaven and Jesus asks her about eye for an eye, she didn't want that philosophy to be what kept her from being with Charlie. This statement revealed a lot about her theological beliefs and how she thought about justice, mercy, and eternal salvation. It also positioned her as morally superior to those calling for vengeance, allowing her to claim the Cavian spiritual high ground while the state pursued the punishment many of her supporters wanted. The forgiveness statement also served a strategic purpose in conservative circles. It allowed Erika to demonstrate her Christian faith in a very public, dramatic way that resonated with the evangelical base of TPUSA support. By forgiving Tyler Robinson, she was performing her faith in a manner that generated enormous goodwill and sympathy from religious conservatives who valued mercy and forgiveness as core Christian virtues. Some cynical observers suggested the timing and public nature of the forgiveness was calculated for maximum political benefit rather than being a purely spiritual decision. Erika Kirk didn't just make public statements about her grief. She shared incredibly intimate details about her last moments with Charlie that most people would consider way too private. She revealed that her final text message to Charlie was simply, "I love you," sent shortly before he went on stage at Utah Valley University. One of the most controversial decisions Erika made was insisting on seeing Charlie's body after the shooting, even though people advised her against it. Medical staff warned her that Charlie had sustained serious damage to his neck from the gunshot, and seeing him might be traumatic. But Erika pushed back hard and demanded to see her husband one last time. When she finally saw Charlie's body, Erika described something that struck her as almost peaceful. She said he had what she called a knowing smile, like the Mona Lisa, which seemed like a strange detail to focus on given the circumstances. Even more specific, she mentioned noticing a gray hair on his head that she'd apparently never pointed out to him while he was alive. But Erika didn't stop at just talking about these moments. She actually posted devastatingly personal images and videos on her social media accounts, showing her final goodbye. The content showed her crying over his body, kissing him goodbye, and holding his hand for the last time. The decision to post this content publicly was controversial. She also shared how she explained Charlie's death to their 3-year-old daughter. Erika recounted telling her that, "Daddy loves you so much, don't you worry, he's on a work trip with Jesus," which was how she tried to explain death to a child too. Young to fully understand. On September 10, 2025, everything changed for the Kirk family and the entire conservative movement. Charlie Kirk, who was just 31 years old, showed up at Utah Valley University in Orem for what was supposed to be a preclinical subject routine event. He was doing a Q&A session with about 3,000 people attending. Charlie had built Turning Point USA from scratch back in 2012, growing it into a massive organization that promoted conservative values on more than 3,500 college campuses. He'd become one of the most influential voices in conservative youth politics and was super close with former President Donald Trump. Charlie had married Erika in 2021, and they had 2 young kids together. During the Q&A session, a single shot rang out from the roof of the Losey Center building. Someone had positioned themselves up there with a high-powered rifle and waited for the perfect moment to fire. The shot hit Charlie directly in the neck, causing catastrophic damage. Despite immediate medical response, he died from his injuries. The shooter then fled the scene, jumping from the rooftop and running away into a wooded area near the campus. Security footage captured the entire escape, showing a figure in dark clothing making the leap from the building and sprinting toward cover. Charlie Kirk's assassination instantly became one of the most shocking political assassinations in recent American history. The person responsible turned out to be Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old student at Dixie Hunt Technical College. Tyler came from what seemed like a totally normal conservative Republican family in St. George, Utah. His background made the whole thing even more confusing, because he'd grown up with the same values Charlie Kirk was promoting. His parents were registered Republicans, active in their local Mormon congregation, and by all accounts had raised their children in a traditional conservative household that emphasized faith, family, and patriotism. But something had changed in Tyler over the past year. He'd shifted pretty dramatically to the left politically, becoming a strong supporter of LGBTQ+ rights. Part of this transformation seemed connected to his romantic relationship with his roommate, who was biologically male but in the process of gender transition. This relationship apparently created serious tension with Tyler's conservative family, leading to arguments and strained family dinners where politics became the central, divisive topic. Tyler's political evolution wasn't just about changing opinions, it represented a complete rejection of his upbringing and family values. According to family members interviewed by investigators, Tyler had become increasingly hostile toward conservative figures and ideology, viewing them as spreading hatred and discrimination. This radicalization process, which happened relatively quickly over the course of about a year, transformed him from a typical conservative kid into someone willing to commit murder over political differences. The case against Tyler Robinson was absolutely overwhelming from the start. Prosecutors had DNA evidence that consistently showed up on the rifle's trigger and other parts of the weapon. This wasn't just trace evidence. It was solid, repeated findings that definitively linked Tyler to the murder weapon. But the DNA wasn't even the most damning evidence. Tyler had sent text messages to his roommate that basically served as a full confession. In one message, he literally wrote, "I got a chance to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." The rifle itself told its own story. Tyler had taken the time to engrave messages onto the bullets, which showed serious premeditation. One bullet had, "Hey, fascist, catch!" carved into it. Another one had "O Bella Ciao" engraved on it, referring to an Italian anti-fascist song. These engravings proved this wasn't random violence. Tyler had been planning this as a political assassination. What ultimately led to Tyler's capture was his own family. After the FBI released photos of the suspect, Tyler's family members recognized him. Instead of protecting their son, they made the incredibly difficult decision to turn him in to authorities. Utah County Prosecutor Jeffrey Gray moved fast with formal charges. On September 16, 2025, he filed 7 separate charges against Tyler Robinson. The main charge was aggravated murder, which automatically made his latest. Tyler eligible for the death penalty. On top of that, Gray added charges for criminal discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, 2 separate counts of obstruction of justice, 2 counts of witness tampering, and committing a violent crime in the presence of a minor. When Gray announced he'd be seeking the death penalty, he made a point of saying it wasn't a decision he took lightly. He emphasized that he'd made the choice independently as county prosecutor, basing it purely on the title. Available evidence and circumstances. Tyler Robinson made his first court appearance virtually on September 29, 2025. His defense attorney, Catherine Nestor, showed up ready to fight. Nestor brought serious credentials. She had over 30 years of experience, specifically in capital cases. During that first hearing, Nestor immediately requested more time to review what she described as voluminous evidence. Judge Tony Graff agreed and set the next in-person hearing for October 30, 2025. At that upcoming hearing, the defense would have the option to request a preliminary hearing, where they could question witnesses. Nestor had also brought in 2 additional attorneys from California, showing Tyler's side was taking this just as seriously. As Tyler Robinson's trial moves forward and Erika Kirk continues expanding her control over Turning Point, USA, people can't stop talking about all the weird coincidences and suspicious timing surrounding Charlie Kirk's death. The conspiracy theories keep growing, fed by every new public appearance Erika makes. Some people point to how Erika seemed almost prepared for what happened, taking control of TPUSA so smoothly that it looked rehearsed. Others focus on the forgiveness angle, questioning whether someone could really forgive their husband's killer that quickly, unless there was something else going on. Meanwhile, those unverified reports about Erika possibly being questioned as a suspect continued to circulate in certain corners of the internet. The claims about her potentially orchestrating the attack sound completely insane to most people. But for those who believe there's more to the story than what we're being told, these theories provide a framework for understanding why everything happened the way it did. The timing of everything remains the biggest question mark. How did Erika manage to take over Turning Point USA within 72 hours? Why did she immediately start making such bold claims about expanding the organization? Was the forgiveness genuine or calculated? And most importantly, what really happened during count? That alleged brief questioning by authorities that some sources claim occurred. Nobody knows for sure what the truth is, and maybe nobody ever will. What we do know is that Erika Kirk went from being the wife of a prominent conservative activist to being one of the most powerful women in conservative politics almost overnight. The courts will decide Tyler Robinson's fate, determining whether he'll face execution or spend his life in prison. But the questions surrounding Erika Kirk and those unverified allegations about her possible involvement might never be fully answered. The conspiracy theories evolve with each passing week, incorporating new details from the ongoing trial and Erika's public appearances. For now, all we can do is watch as she continues building the empire her husband started, wondering if we're seeing a widow honoring her husband's legacy or something far more calculated playing out in real time? Those allegations about her being questioned as a suspect, combined with her lightning-fast consolidation of power, create an unsettling picture that refuses to go away. If there's any truth to the claims that she orchestrated this attack, that she used Tyler Robinson to eliminate her husband and seize his organization, then the phrase "goodbye forever" takes on a chilling new meaning. She would just be saying goodbye to her role as a supportive wife. She'd be saying goodbye to her freedom, her reputation, and potentially her life, if prosecutors ever uncover evidence linking her to the conspiracy. But until that evidence emerges, if it even exists, Erika Kirk remains free, powerful, and in complete control of one of America's most influential conservative organizations, leaving us all to wonder whether we're watching a widow's triumph or a murderer's perfect crime.